Most people imagine financial celebrity as a reward, visibility, influence, authority, a platform large enough to shape opinions and markets. Books that study the lives of famous investors, hedge fund managers, and market commentators tell a more sobering story. Fame in finance is not merely attention, it is exposure. And exposure carries costs that compound quietly over time. Financial celebrities are not entertainers. Their words move capital. Their silence is analyzed. Their mistakes are magnified. The first lesson these books emphasize is that once an individual becomes a public financial figure, privacy is no longer a default. It becomes a strategic resource that must be actively defended. Unlike artistic or cultural fame, financial celebrity is inseparable from judgment. Every trade, every forecast, every past decision becomes part of a permanent public record. Books describe how early success attracts attention that feels flattering at first. Interviews increase, quotes circulate, requests multiply. But with attention comes expectation. Markets begin to anticipate not just performance, but consistency. And consistency in uncertain systems is an impossible standard. Another recurring insight is that scrutiny distorts incentives. When decisions are made under observation, behavior changes. Financial celebrities describe the pressure to explain positions prematurely, to appear decisive even when uncertainty remains high, and to avoid admitting doubt, because doubt is interpreted as weakness. Over time, this performative pressure erodes the very judgment that created success in the first place. Books also highlight how privacy erosion extends beyond professional life. Personal spending, family relationships, political opinions, and even health choices become fodder for speculation. The boundary between public insight and private existence dissolves. For individuals whose edge depended on focus and emotional regulation, this intrusion becomes a hidden tax. Another theme appears around narrative lock-in. Once a financial celebrity becomes associated with a particular philosophy, value investing, macro forecasting technology, optimism, the public expects consistency with that narrative. Deviating from it, even rationally, invites backlash. Books show that some investors continued defending outdated views longer than they should have not, because they believed them, but because changing publicly carried reputational risk. These books also stress that scrutiny intensifies asymmetrically. Success is attributed to brilliance. Failure is attributed to character. A single wrong call can overshadow decades of discipline. Financial celebrities live with the knowledge that error is inevitable, but forgiveness is not guaranteed. This asymmetry creates psychological strain that outsiders rarely see. Another recurring insight concerns time. Financial celebrity compresses decision timelines. Media cycles demand instant commentary. Markets move before reflection is possible. Books show that many famous investors struggled not with complexity, but with speed, the loss of space to think privately before speaking publicly. There is also the issue of misinterpretation. Complex strategies are simplified into sound bites. Nuance disappears. A carefully hedged view becomes a headline prediction. When outcomes diverge, blame follows. Financial celebrities often describe frustration not at being wrong, but at being misunderstood. Books on this topic also examine how scrutiny reshapes relationships. Friends become cautious. New acquaintances carry hidden agendas. Trust becomes harder to grant. Some financial celebrities withdrew socially, not out of arrogance, but out of self-protection. Privacy became synonymous with sanity. Another insight is that visibility creates moral burden. When public figures profit during crises, criticism follows regardless of legality or intent. Books recount how successful investors were vilified for outcomes they neither caused nor controlled. Financial celebrity blurs the line between participation and responsibility in the public imagination. These books also reveal a paradox: fame can reduce effectiveness. Some of the most successful investors became less agile once they were widely followed. Crowded trades, front-running, market impact. Privacy loss does not only affect lifestyle, it affects returns. Many quietly closed funds or returned capital to preserve freedom. Another recurring lesson is selective silence. The most enduring financial celebrities learned to say less over time. They declined interviews. They avoided predictions. They focused on process rather than commentary. Silence in these books emerges not as avoidance, but as discipline. Books also emphasize that some of the greatest financial minds actively avoided fame altogether. They operated quietly, managed capital discreetly, and protected anonymity as an asset. Their influence was real, but indirect. Their lives remained balanced. The contrast between these figures and public celebrities is stark. Another theme concerns identity erosion. When public opinion fluctuates wildly, self-worth becomes vulnerable. Financial celebrities who tied identity to reputation suffered more deeply during downturns. Those who maintained separation between self and status endured with greater stability. As these books progress, the reader begins to question the value of recognition itself. Visibility brings power, but also fragility. Influence expands reach, but narrows freedom. Financial celebrity becomes less a prize and more a trade-off. Importantly, these books do not argue that fame is inherently destructive. They argue that it is costly. The cost is measured not only in privacy, but in cognitive load, emotional strain, and constrained decision-making. Those who navigated it well did so intentionally with boundaries and restraint. And this is where the story begins to narrow. Because once the cost of financial celebrity is understood, not as inconvenience, but as structural pressure on judgment, success itself must be redefined. The question shifts from, how visible can I become, to how much visibility can I afford, without losing the clarity that made me successful? And the answer, as these books suggest, is rarely obvious until privacy is already gone. Scrutiny has become constant, and the quiet freedom that once enabled great decisions is difficult, sometimes impossible to reclaim. Like discovering too late that attention once accumulated is far harder to shed than it was to attract, and that this asymmetry reshapes everything that follows. In the second half of these books, the conversation turns from exposure to endurance. Authors stop cataloging the costs of scrutiny and begin asking a more difficult question: how do financial celebrities survive themselves once visibility becomes permanent? The answer, repeated across biographies and reflections, is neither wealth nor influence, but boundaries. The most resilient financial celebrities learned to separate public credibility from private decision-making. They accepted that the public version of themselves would always be incomplete, often distorted, and occasionally hostile. Instead of correcting every misinterpretation, they conserved energy for what mattered most: process. Books show that those who tried to defend their reputation actively lost focus. Those who let reputation fluctuate preserved clarity. Another powerful insight emerges here. Scrutiny does not only punish mistakes, it discourages adaptation. When millions watch, changing your mind feels like betrayal. Financial celebrities describe the internal conflict of knowing a view is no longer valid, yet understanding that reversing publicly would damage perceived authority. Some delayed necessary shifts. Others chose silence over explanation. Both choices carried cost. These books also highlight a counterintuitive truth: the more famous an investor becomes, the less freedom they have to be wrong in private. Early mistakes, once valuable learning tools, become reputational events. This dynamic pushes public figures toward incrementalism and caution not always because it is optimal, but because it is survivable. The edge dulls not from lack of insight, but from constant observation. Privacy then becomes an operational asset. Books describe how some financial celebrities rebuilt privacy, deliberately moving cities, reducing media presence, delegating communication, or stepping away from fund management altogether. These were not retirements from ambition, but recalibrations towards sanity. Another recurring theme is silence as strategy. The most enduring figures learned that commentary has diminishing returns. Early visibility creates opportunity. Continued visibility creates constraint. Over time, silence restores optionality. Saying less reduces misinterpretation. Withdrawing selectively protects long-term judgment. The books also explore the emotional toll of being symbolized. Financial celebrities become avatars for market forces, greed, fear, or inequality. Public anger attaches to faces, not systems. This symbolic burden creates pressure unrelated to actual behavior. Those who internalized it suffered. Those who recognized it as projection endured. As the narratives approach their conclusion, a stark contrast emerges between two archetypes. One chases influence, staying visible at all costs, slowly trading freedom for relevance. The other steps back, deliberately preserving privacy, flexibility, and mental clarity. Both may remain wealthy. Only one remains free. And so the lesson resolves quietly but decisively. Financial celebrity is not a destination. It is a condition with benefits and with irreversible trade-offs. The books do not argue that visibility should be avoided entirely. They argue that it should be chosen consciously limited, intentionally, and exited when it begins to erode the very judgment that created success. If this reflection resonated with you, pause and ask yourself one honest question. If recognition disappeared, tomorrow, would your decision-making improve or collapse? That answer reveals whether visibility is serving you or consuming you. Share what this made you reconsider. And if you want to continue exploring book-driven insights about power money and the quiet advantages most people overlook, subscribe and stay connected. Because in finance, freedom of thought is often more valuable than fame and far harder to recover once lost.